All right, cool. So thanks everybody for coming. It looks like Sophie just dropped the recipe card in the chat, which is really awesome. Thank you for doing that, Sophie. And I also want to remind everybody that the recipes are always coming through in your email each week. So you should get the recipe on Thursday for the demonstration on Friday. Today's going to be a really awesome one if you want to follow along and make it with me because it's really simple and really quick. But this is going to be a fun one. So here we are for week 3 of our Improve Your Intake Fiber Challenge, which brings us to Nuts and Seeds week, which is exciting because I get to highlight one of my favorite sources of soluble fiber, which is chia seeds. So I know that I probably shouldn't play favorites for fiber sources, but I do like to highlight chia seeds because it gives us a really nice science experiment that's going to give us a visual of how fiber and fluid interact in our digestive system. So in previous Friday snack time demonstrations, I've talked about how when we are increasing our fiber, we want to go gradually over a period of time. So one way that we can achieve that is by adding it to our snacks first. We've also reviewed a little bit about having your food taste good and be celebratory. Today, I really want to talk about how important it is to increase your hydration when you are increasing fiber to make sure that you're feeling your best. So this is going to be a really informative demonstration of why that's important and what's going on in our bodies. So let's start talking about our chia seeds. This is not going to take very long to make. So I'm curious, who here has ever had a chia pet? Give me a thumbs up if you've had a chia pet before. And the reason I ask is because we all know what chia pets are. There we go. There's one. All right. So the reason I ask is because my mother will refuse to try chia seeds. She doesn't want to eat them because they remind her too much of chia pets, which I think is not a barrier because you like to eat sunflower seeds, and you like to look at sunflowers. You like to look at your chia pet. You can eat the chia seeds. But I just think it's funny that my mom can't decouple those in her brain. So she's a little anti-chia seed. So I want to make sure that people are not coming into this bias about chia pets. Who here has ever made chia pudding before? Has anybody ever tried this before? I don't see any thumbs ups. Oh, okay. So it looks like Trisha makes it frequently. That's awesome. And Sophie made a thumbs up. Cool. So we're all a little bit familiar with chia pudding, which is really excellent. We'll talk about some fun ways we can flavor it today and some fun places we can stick it into our other foods, like mixing it into things. It looks like Trisha eats it for breakfast all the time, which is awesome. Makes you feel really good. Okay, cool. So chia seeds are part of the salvia family. If we have any gardeners on here that grow salvia, it's part of that family. They're really tiny seeds. And they were really popular in ancient Aztec times. That's where they were first eaten. But one funny thing that I heard about them recently, I read a New York Times article, and they were talking about this new trend of chia seeds and how it's a really great trend. It's very healthy for you. But they were saying that every generation feels like they've discovered this healthy superfood for the first time. So every time there's a new generation and we say, oh, wow, look at this wonderful healthy food that we discovered. But really it's been discovered by, our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents have all gone through this phase of saying, wow, these are really healthy for you. And there's a good reason for that. It's because they are very good for you. So chia seeds are a great source of soluble fiber, which is what we're talking about today. They're also high in omega-3 fatty acids, which are essential for your body. And they're a great source of protein. So kind of covering a lot of bases in just one tiny seed. So coming to our recipe, I first want to talk about what kind of container I make it in. And you want to use a jar with a tight-fitting lid or some sort of container that has a tight-fitting lid because we're going to shake this up as we go. This is a peanut butter jar, and part of the reason that I want to talk about it is because it's like a free thing that you get. If you buy peanut butter in a glass jar, you get this jar with this tight-fitting lid that's got this nice seal in here. And I really like using these because unlike some other jars, you're going to get a really tight seal so that you can turn this liquid thing upside down. In comparison to like a salsa jar, I find that those don't always have this little rubber seal built into the lid. And sometimes if you don't screw it on exactly right and you tip it over, you're going to get a mess all over the place. So I really like using these. You can also use a mason jar, but obviously those don't just show up free in your house whenever you whenever you finish a jar of peanut butter. So there's my praise of the peanut butter jar. So we're going to start off with 1 cup of our liquid. So this recipe card is really a blank slate. It's a very simple recipe that you can adapt however you want. So these ratios on here are really just a starting place. And from there, you can adjust to suit your own taste. So we're going to start with 1 cup of milk. And to be dairy-free friendly, I know we have a lot of friends who don't eat dairy, I'm going to be using a plant-based milk. So this is flax milk. I chose flax milk for the very important reason that it was on sale. I'm wondering, what are everybody else's favorite plant milks? Do we have a bunch of almond milk people here? Do we have a bunch of oat milk people here? What are everybody's favorite plant milks? Trisha likes oat milk. I'm with you, Trisha. I really like oat milk too. It's one of my favorites. Coconut milk. And Sophie makes her own nut milk out of mixed nuts. That's awesome. So with any of these nut milks, they're really kind of nutritionally very similar. Most of them are mostly water. So you're not going to get a ton of protein. You're not going to get a ton of other nutrients in there the way you would with dairy milk. So that's just an important distinction to make, that dairy milk is going to have a lot of protein and carbohydrates and fats, and nut milk really doesn't have a whole lot going on for it. So this particular one that was on sale, they've added protein to in the form of pea protein. So it's going to give it a little bit more nutrition. But in general, most nut milks are kind of one and the same nutritionally. They don't have a lot going on. One other exception is also soy milk. Soy milk is going to be a good source of protein as well. So if you're really looking to make this a very satisfying breakfast that's going to last you a long time, your chia seeds are going to give you some protein. But like we were talking about last week with the chickpeas, if you wanted to get your whole serving of protein from chia seeds for one meal, it would be a lot of chia seeds and you might end up with some sort of discomfort. So if you want to boost up the protein, you can try a little bit more protein heavy version of a milk. It's nice and thick because of that pea protein they've added in there. All right, so we've got 1 cup in our jar, and then we're going to do a 1/4 cup of chia seeds. So this is a starting ratio that you can then play with and adjust. So if you find that after this is all done settling and it's too thick, you can add a little bit more milk. If you find that it's a little bit too loose, you can add a little bit more chia seeds. So we're just going to seal our lid on there and give it a good shake. Now I am going to sweeten this a little bit, which is another thing that's really adaptable. So you can sweeten it as much as you want or not at all. You can put some sweet toppings on it, or you can just have it as a more savory or not very intense sweet flavor. Again, with the nut milks, if you are using some sort of sweetened nut milk, a lot of them don't say that they're sweetened. Most of them will specify if they're unsweetened, but most of the time the sweetened ones, they just don't tell you. But a good clue is if it's vanilla flavored or I don't know what other flavors there would be, but a flavored nut milk would generally have sugar, so you wouldn't need to add as much sweetener. I'm going to use honey today. We used maple syrup last week, but just in the interest of mixing it up, we've got some honey. I'm going to do 1 teaspoon in there. And then we're going to shake it again. So there's a couple different ways that you can do this. I like to just shake it up and then leave it on the counter and shake it every couple minutes for like 5 minutes. So this first initial stage, when these chia seeds are soaking up this liquid, you want to keep them moving a little bit. You don't want to just mix it up and stick it in the fridge because it might settle in a way that they get kind of clumpy. So you can see it's kind of clumping on the bottom there. I want to get that shaken up and then come back before it totally settles and give it a couple more shakes once or twice. So that's the really basic, unflavored, I don't want to say boring, but really basic level version of this chia pudding right now. If you wanted to add more flavors to this, you could add a little bit of almond or vanilla extract. You could add a little bit of lemon zest. You could add some cocoa powder. But as far as a blank slate, this is really just 3 ingredients. And then you can toss this in the fridge and in about an hour or 2, it'll be ready. So I do have one that I have already made and has been chilling for about, I think I made it at like 8, so maybe like 4 hours. So this you can see what's happened here. So this is where we're getting to our science experiment. So right away, things are moving, it's pretty liquidy, and it's got a lot of room to go. This, on the other hand, is like pretty well set. It's moving so slowly. So I'll get a spoon so you can see if you've never done this before, the consistency that we have here after a little bit of sitting. So you can see that it's thick, it's holding its shape on the spoon, looks a little ploppy. We're going to add some flavors to this. So this is really interesting to think about what happens to fiber in our gut when we eat it. All of this fiber has attracted this water in and formed a gel. So all of the fiber in here is swelling with water and making this gel. And that's what's going to happen in our insides when we eat anything that's got soluble fiber in it. So the soluble fiber is the one that attracts the water to form a gel, which is great for our digestion. It helps things to pass smoothly and to stay in one piece. I know we don't really enjoy talking about stool formation when we're in the kitchen, but this is a great reminder of the importance of drinking more water. So if you've got all the soluble fiber in there, it's going to pull water from somewhere. And to prevent you from having any sort of discomfort, i.e. constipation, you want to be making sure that you're drinking lots and lots of water. So you can think about when you're eating any other fiber food, the same thing is happening in your stomach and in your intestines, where it's pulling in that water and making that gel. So you want to make sure it has the water available to pull in. Otherwise, it probably just won't feel very good. Okay, enough ranting about stools in the kitchen. So now we're going to make this look pretty, straight from stools to looking pretty, huh? All right, so we're gonna make this in some sort of pretty glass jar so that we can layer it up. So I've got 2 jars here, and then I've also, actually these are stemless wine glasses. Does anybody else eat their breakfast out of a wine glass? Just me? All right. So I'm gonna layer this up, and then I have a bunch of other toppings that we are going to put in here. And this might be kind of like a audience participation thing. I have a whole assortment of things, and we can see what people are feeling as far as fun toppings for today. So the first one, I think I'm going to include some sort of blackberries. These are from my yard. They just grew wild, and we picked them a couple weeks ago, and they've been in the freezer. So I think I'm going to mash these up to make some nice layers in my chia pudding. A little bit of a parfait style. One thing that's really nice about chia pudding is that it kind of gives you that texture and flavor that you would get from eating yogurt, but it's going to be totally dairy-free for our dairy-free friends. So you can kind of apply it the same place that you would apply some yogurt. The texture is a little bit different from yogurt, though. It does have some amount of graininess or chunkiness similar to tapioca pudding. So if you like the texture of tapioca pudding, you'll probably really like the texture of chia pudding. All right, so I've got my blackberries mashed up. So now let's look and see what else I have as far as flavors that might go well with blackberries. I've got some almond butter. That might be nice for drizzling. This is nuts and seeds week after all, so we want to pull in some nuts where we can. Got some cinnamon, which might be nice to layer up in there. Coconut flakes might be good in there. So I guess I'll show you everything that I've got out. I've got a lime. I wish it was lemon, but lime's what I had in the fridge. Might go really well with the coconut. And then I have a couple of figs. Does anybody have a combination that they want to throw out as far as what do you think would be good? Open up the chat. All right, I don't see any combinations, so I'm going to go for it. I'm going to put in a little bit of chia pudding in the bottom of this glass. I'm going to have to get a long spoon for this. All right, so 1 layer of chia, and then I think I'm going to do a layer of blackberries. Make it pretty. Yeah, that's beautiful. Another layer of chia. So once it's fall, I think that'd be really fun to do a pumpkin pie themed one of these. We just have a couple more weeks. and layer it up with canned pumpkin puree, and then maybe some pumpkin pie spice, and call it a pumpkin pie parfait. I'm gonna drizzle a little bit of almond butter on top of this one. Then maybe some coconut flakes. I'm curious what everybody else does for their chia pudding. What flavors or fruits you like to top it with. I know Trisha eats it every morning. What do you usually put with it, Trisha? They've got a couple of layers going on in here. You can see the lines with the sludge on the side, with the blackberries and the almond butter and the coconuts in this one. Trisha likes an in-season fruit and some sort of nut. Very nice. Sounds delicious. Any favorite combinations that you've had recently? Blueberry walnut is your favorite. Okay, well, that sounds great. That sounds really good. Very nice and seasonal. As far as seasons, I think I'm gonna slice up some figs and put them on there. If we're talking about seasonal fruits, because I found these at the store yesterday and they're just so gorgeous. I'm gonna cut this and garnish them on the top. Does anybody have any questions or suggestions, favorite things that you like to have this with? Sometimes I eat it straight up in a dish like this, and sometimes I like to mix it into other things like yogurt. Sometimes I'll put it in a smoothie. Anybody else have anywhere that they drizzle it or incorporate it? All right, so this is our little parfait, and a great gut tonic to make you feel really good as long as you're drinking plenty of water while you're having it. And that's all I've got. Thanks so much for coming. Bye.